Just got called into human resources.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're well. Some familiar faces. Just waiting for Dom, the master of all, to appear. Check the recording's working. Is it too hot to be outside, Michelle?
Yeah, it's a bit searing on the roof, so I've come indoors. It's also so bright that I can't see the screen.
No.
Sorry about
Terrible
that.
thing. Well, I'm halfway there. I'm in Belgium, although this is not my hotel room.
Oh, how nice. How's the weather in Belgium?
Cold, but it's nice. Food's good.
Nice. Don't mind cold and crispy and bright, do you?
Yeah, no, that I can live
It's
with.
just
It's
the cold and wet and
windy.
miserable that gets to you.
Yeah. Dom tells me he's on his way.
Excellent.
Where is he hiding is the question. Ah, okay, I've lost the link, says Dom. I'm in one job. Let me help him out. He obviously likes to make an entrance. Let's just do the T's and C's before we start. So, is everyone okay, or say if you're not okay to have it recorded? It's helpful for people who aren't here or to share it afterwards. So, hopefully, won't be anything too expose in the evening's entertainment. It's a very informal affair. Dom is going to introduce the app to those people that are new to it. So we've still got lots of new people coming on board through the RFU and the community game, which is very exciting. The previous one of these we did, which is on YouTube, has got more specific information about how to do a concussion or how to track a concussion. That's obviously a big part of the Proactive app. But today is just going to be more of a general update. A general run through of the platform. Now it's got those things integrated, and then just a big Q&A for anyone that's got any questions. So things are always developing in the background. We are headed towards having the app as a native version, so it can go on your phones, and that will have one advantage of being able to create an instant, log an instant, and then it will upload it whenever you're next back online, as opposed to the current version where you actually have to be online in order to for the incident to be reported. Ah, there he is.
I've been here ages. You just didn't spot me in time, Luke. That's the problem.
Hand
I've been
over. So,
on a global tour today, haven't we? So
yeah,
New Zealand this morning. I've just been
I
on to
know.
America, and now I'm back in the UK. So yeah, apologies.
Well,
I was a couple of minutes
I will
late.
hand you over to Dom, the founder of Proverb, the genius behind it. Those who haven't met me, I'm Luke. I'm a liaison to rugby, as it were. My background being in the game, but yeah, it's obviously the core of what we do at Proactive. It's our biggest audience, the rugby community, the most engaged, the most professional in grassroots sport. So thanks for all of your support to this point. Like I said, Dom's going to do a brief overview. Some of you will know some of this already, but there's definitely a section at the end for some Q&A. So I'm going to dive out and I'll be on the chat if anyone's got any questions. And like I said, we'll record this and share it afterwards.
Cool. Thank you, Luke. Evening, everybody. Apologies, I was a couple of minutes late. Schoolboy error. I forgot to save the link as much as anything else. So typical tech. Great to see you all on here. As Luke said, it will be recorded as well. So if you want to send it around to your groups, that's absolutely fine. I'll let Luke manage the chat, as he said. If you've got any questions, if anything pops up while I'm talking about Proactive and some general areas that we're going to cover this evening, then just drop it in the chat and then we can pick it up at the end. I've tried to keep what I'm saying relatively short so that I'm not boring you too much if you already know what Proactive is and how it works, but also to give you plenty of opportunity at the end to ask any questions, etc. So first question, and I'm leaning towards Luke a little bit to give me a wave to check that you can actually see my screen. Okay.
Yeah, got you.
All good? Cool. So in essence, just a really brief overview of what Proactive is for those that haven't seen it before. I've seen some familiar faces on the call already, so that's really good. Proactive's digital reporting system for sport and leisure. We work in sport, leisure and education, designed to make reporting easier, designed for all levels of staff, from your coaches all the way through to your club admins and chairman, etc. And every user has their own unique login that is created when you add them to your account, your club account. They get an automated email from Proactive that allows them to set up their account using a password protected login, and then they can download the app onto their mobile device or tablet, and it sits there ready to go. As you can see there, the web version on display there with the little doodle icon, but very soon we'll have the native app version, which will just be even slicker than that one. So what they want to use, and they're off and running. What I thought we'd cover a little bit today is some of the sort of FAQs that we get from clubs, but also an opportunity for those of you who are familiar with the system just to ask any sort of nagging questions that you've got around Proactive. We've developed the rugby version with Rachel Full-Brown and her team and Chrissy at Rugby Safe. So all of the additional functionality has been basically developed on the back of requests that they've made, either that have come through clubs like yourselves, or that they've seen quicker and easier ways for things to get done using Proactive. And we've now got 480 rugby clubs using Proactive, which is great. We'd like to get as many. And I know that although I don't want to go into the detail of Regulation 9, I know that one of the questions that they ask within those audits is, do you have an incident reporting system? If so, what it is? And obviously, having Proactive is the perfect response to that question. It allows them to skip on to other areas around sort of core. So that's a little run through on the screen of what I was going to cover this evening. Very informal. As I say, any questions, just just throw them in the chat or grab at the end. So the first one really is one that is a common one that keeps coming back, is making sure that you've got the right version of Proactive for Rugby. So that is the URL, the web URL for Rugby. Now, when we release the native version, the app version on the app stores, it will be called Proactive Rugby. So that will be really nice and easy to find, and it will also share the same icon as we've always had with the little Rugby Safe Rugby ball. So this is the screen that you should see when you're logging into Proactive. And the main reason for making sure that you have the right version is there are subtle differences between what we call the black version, which is what most of organisations use, compared to the lovely Rugby Safe version. The first thing to note is obviously we've got the Howden logo on there. We work closely with Andy Gilbourne and his team at Howden, and I know that his risk assessment tool, a lot of the question answers point you towards Proactive. So we've made sure we have that link on there so that you're aware that we work in unison with them. And then we've also recently put in the England Rugby Schools logo, because Proactive is now being used across schools. We'd like more schools on board. So if you know any schools that play a lot of rugby, I know they'll be sort of just starting potentially their hockey season or their early cricket season. But if they are still playing rugby through this term and next term, and they want to use a concussion tracker or the wider Proactive rugby version, please get them to get in contact with myself or Luke, and we can set them up pretty quickly on that. The subtle differences are here. First and foremost, when you're doing an incident report, there's a drop down of different types of incident, including accident, near miss, etc. And currently, there's no safeguarding on the rugby version. Now that's currently under review. We're constantly talking to Viv Rimmer and the safeguarding team to see if there is a way of integrating their online form that they currently have into Proactive, so it makes it even easier for staff and coaches and admins particularly, and safeguarding staff at your clubs to send reports through to them if needed, but also for you internally to record and report and update safeguarding. So currently that's not an option on there, but keep an eye out for it. It may well crop up. The RFU-RI, so that is reportable incidents. So there is a direct link from the Proactive system through to the Injured Players Foundation. And what that means is if there is a reportable incident, and that is a hospital visit that requires a stay or a fatality within a certain period after a match, those can now be reported straight through to the Injured Players Foundation from Proactive. And I will show you in a second what that looks like on the dashboard. But obviously the black version doesn't have that. It doesn't have that extra reporting option, the direct link to the Injured Players Foundation. Within the incident reporting, there's also some additional concussion information to guide staff as they're going through. So when they click on it being a head injury, it automatically brings up some of the concussion red flags and information directly from head case. And then most recently, literally just before Christmas, AGP clubs, so I think there's 26 or 28 AGP clubs across the country. Some of them may well fit within your CBs. They all have a version of Proactive now, which has been paid for centrally. That has a direct link to the central AGP team. It has an additional question on their incident reporting, but they also have an additional function called Flag It, which is basically an external facing reporting option. So that allows visitors to those AGPs, whether they be football clubs, athletics clubs, whatever it is, using those pitches to report incidents through to the central team. That's done through QR codes, which are already on display across the AGPs. We've just adapted it to fit within Proactive, so it's really useful. And obviously the final thing that isn't on there that is on the Rugby version is the CRISP research module. I'm going to run through simple setup, just a few bits around setting up groups, adding users, setting access levels. I'm going to show you the most underused but super useful feature of Proactive, which is the company info section. This is a section that is available to every single club, but hardly gets used. And it's a really useful part of the system for you because it allows you to add links to other sites, add links to your other policies and procedures, but also upload information, upload PDFs of critical contact numbers, for example, so that your staff can instantly access them through Proactive. It's always been there, but it's been really underused. It's become something that people are saying, oh, didn't know that we had that, and that's really useful. So jumping on to the actual dashboard itself, this is what you will hopefully be familiar with if you're using the right version up here. The web interface won't change a lot when the native apps come along. So this will not change massively. So you'll be able to log into Proactive either through the web, like we are here, or on the native app. In terms of your sort of admin of this section, you've obviously got all of your incidents logged down here, where they happened, etc. And you'll notice on the right-hand side here, you've got RFU RI. Now, just find one that is here. So if you've flagged an incident as being a reportable incident, so that's a hospital visit or a fatality, that will be marked as yes, as a reportable incident in the report. And then when you click on it to send it, this is where the information gets collated regarding the next of kin for that person, what type of incident it is, their contact number, the type of surface, the opposition referee. And that is what gets sent through with a link to the report itself through to the Injured Players Foundation. So you've got some information here, and that goes through, and they then, as it says here, will contact you within a certain amount of time. So that's really useful to know. Just cancel that because I don't want to send them one by accident this evening. It won't be good form. Within an incident summary, if you flagged an incident as being a reportable injury, the information will come up onto this screen as well. So it's recorded within your summary page. You can add a incident as a reportable injury. Actually, let me go back to the dashboard. Pick one that isn't a reportable injury as it stands. Let's choose this one here. So you can see here, it's got the information about what is a reportable injury event, and you can actually then flag it as being a reportable injury or not a reportable injury. If you flag any report as a reportable injury, at the point of flagging it as yes, when you return to the dashboard, just save. It will show up as a reportable injury. Okay, so that then will automatically turn it red because it's been flagged as a reportable injury, and it then allows you to send that through to the Injured Players Foundation. So that's a really useful piece of info to be able to see there. In terms of groups, the process for adding groups is really simple. For those of you who haven't used Proactive before, most clubs set up their groups a little bit like we have done here in age groups. Group. That's where the native app will be so much quicker. You add the group title, so I can call it a webinar group for today. Add that group, and that will be automatically added under W to the webinar group. and that is then up and running and will be accessible to the users related to it. Our users, very simple. Again, when we add users to Proactive, the only information that's needed is their name. We have a first name in there as well, so you can put a nickname if they've got a nickname within the club, or their first name in there. Their email address, and it's obviously critical that they get that information correctly. So make sure you put the information in there spot on. And then this is where you get to choose what level of access that they have within Proactive. So the company admin is the highest level. They get to see all of the dashboards from all of the different groups, the different age groups. It would be walking rugby, academy teams, etc. A group admin, you can see here, once you select group admin, they can be an admin for just one single group. Or if you click on multiple group access, you can then select multiple groups that they're associated with. So if they are coaching across different teams, for example, this is really useful because they will then have the option to report in for those different teams. But we'll also see the dashboards if they're a group admin of those different teams. The final level of access is coach level. This is really for your staff on the ground that you simply want to report in. You don't want them to see any dashboards. You just want them to have access to resources and the ability to report incidents, hazards, free session checks, etc. So again, they can be assigned to multiple groups, but the difference really is that they won't see the dashboards. They just simply get the reporting options. Again, very simple, goes through, you add them to the groups you want. Remember to press save. And when you press save, you'll get a message at the top here that says user has been added correctly. And that is what triggers the automatic email through to that user so that they can then log in for the first time, set their password, and then they'll be up and running. The heavily underused area is the company info section here. Now this is my demo version, so it is quite crowded. But what you can do is you can actually add in any information you like into this space. So I've seen some clubs have put in, this is Denton Rugby Club, and we've been around since 1955, etc., etc. So do a bit of background to the club. But you can also put links in there. So this is a training site, so your staff can link straight through to training. You might have a separate Google Drive of important documents or policies and procedures. You can put a link in there for that as well, and you can put web links to various different information. What you've also got on the right hand side here are PDFs, so you can add a PDF to your company info. So if you look up here, edit company info, you click on there, that gives you a typical area for you to add information. But down here, you also get to choose files. So you can add PDFs, whatever PDFs you want can be added in there. Press save and it will appear on the right hand side of your company info section. Another additional feature within the company info is the actual archive month. Now, reports will automatically get archived for your club every 12 months. But if you want to set this so that it's archived, so you've got a nice clean dashboard at the start of the season on the 1st of September, you can click on September. And as you can see here, all reports will be archived at midnight on the 1st of September. So what that does is it clears your dashboard completely for the new season. So if I just go back to here, actually I'll go back to the dashboard and just show you if I can, if I've got the archive button up here. So by setting that archive, you have a little button up here which shows your archived reports, and you click on that. These are all the reports that have happened more than 12 months ago, or based on the date that you set for them to be put into this new archive folder. So that's really useful. It clears your dashboard nice and easy for you. Back to the company info, you'll see here that you've got your medical emergency action plan. So your staff can view your action plan for the club. So this was based on the original PDF version of the RFU's medical emergency action plan, but it basically adds it all into Proactive so that your staff can click on it and open up. You can put your club logo in there. You've got information about the location of the club, postcode, what 3 words. You can also add a map of the facility, so you can put access points on there, which is really useful. Lead first aiders, all of the things you'd expect to see on a medical emergency action plan. So you've got your chain of command, so people know what to do if there's an issue. You've got follow-up on there. And then at the bottom here, you've got a download option, which allows you to download this and actually display it within the club. So if you want your staff or even participants to be able to see this key information from this point upwards, you can actually download a version and put it around the club, which is really useful. So that's kind of covered a little bit on the dashboard. I know I've whizzed through super quick on that, but I want to give people as much time as possible to ask any questions. The concussion tracker that we did the webinar on last month, we obviously took all of your feedback on board related to the pausing of the concussion tracker and the potential of an additional question at day 8. We've fed that back to Rachel and Chrissy and the team, and we'll keep working with them on the concussion tracker. Concussion tracker for all and for the Sport and Recreation Alliance, who are the people who originally set the new generic protocols out. So any feedback that we get through Woodby is really useful for us to take into those organisations as well, because the general protocol for concussion is exactly the same across all sports now. In terms of adding Proactive to your screen as it stands, we've added an additional sheet about how to do that for mobile phone users, because I know that has been a question that's been flagged a few times by users. So this is available now on the system, how to add it to your phone or mobile device. I know it's slightly different for Android and Apple users, but the principle is basically the same. You need to add it to the home screen, and that's when it brings up the icon like that. In terms of concussion tracker, as I mentioned, we had a webinar on this last month, but to basically run through the feedback that we had, there was a question about having an additional symptom-free question around day 8, stage 4 into stage 5, which is where they're transitioning from into sort of more familiar type of training sessions, and also the ability to pause through the protocol. The manual progression is up and running, so you can manually progress someone who doesn't interact with the tracker. So you can do that from any stage now within the admin dashboard, and that allows you to basically bypass or push them through if the parent, for example, has opted out of the emails and therefore can't answer questions, or for some reason they've just not answered the question at all and you've been pestering them. As long as you have their authorization, you can move them through to the end of the tracker. Okay. My last 2 questions on here really was to get more and more feedback on what you want to see. We are in the process now of talking to the RFU, talking to Rachel, talking to the people who run CRISP, and finding out how you want it improved going forwards and what additional sort of links, what additional functionality you would like to see. This is the time to do it, and this is the time to flag it with us, because we can then take it to the RFU and try and get it booked in to be added before the new season. So it's a really good time of year to really feed back to us anything you want to put through there. I'm sure Luke will put in the chat the hello@proactivereporting.com email address in case you haven't got that, so you can send any feedback through to us that way. And the final one on there is questions. So without further ado, I will temporarily stop sharing, and I will come up and see if Luke's still there for a start, and then see if there's any questions around the room. If there's any things that you were expecting to get covered this evening that you want to cover quickly this evening, you've still got some time to do that. Yeah. Michelle, are you in the UK this time, Michelle, or are you still enjoying the sun?
That's real sunshine outside my window.
Yeah,
I'm definitely not still in the UK. Dom, the only thing I was that's still a topic of discussion in Hampshire amongst the RSLs about proactive is about, we talked about it briefly on the last one, about this sort of global dashboard access for CBs, so that for all of our clubs, and so for example in my county quite a lot of the clubs now are using proactive, and we're kind of ready to make that next step, so that instead of the CB asking for duplicated information a lot of the time around concussions in particular, that actually it would resolve a massive amount of volunteer time and effort if we could allocate access to some kind of global dashboard for our CB administrator, so she could see the dashboards of all the clubs, so she could report on stats back to the CB exec, as we do currently by having to ask individual clubs what their stats are. But if we could get access to however that was, I don't know if I can't remember whether you said that was going to be a feature on the app-based thing or not. I know you said you were thinking about it. I wondered if there'd been any progress about that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There is going to be a secondary dashboard on the newer version of Proactive. I expect that will be done in a few months' time, which will allow more sort of statistical analysis of injury trends, etc. The link through to both CBs and potentially the day management system is a hot topic that is often brought up. We would love to link into GMS to make it easier for you, so that when you're actually, if I just share the screen again, I can show you how that would kind of potentially transform your incident reporting. Just go back here. So when we have some APIs into other systems, so when we can whiz through and ignore the fact that I'm doing this in a very unprofessional manner, just typing random letters in. We have a link to a system called, there we go, a system called ISAMS, which is a school system. Now, don't worry about the information you see on the screen. Hopefully you can see that instantly when I started typing in the name of a player, it's brought up their details, so that when I click on them, I'm not going to think about what their date of birth is. It's pulled from another system. We'd love to have that on Proactive with the GMS system. So any pressure you want to put on the central team for that would be good. But in terms of the CBs having access, it's been a bit of a bugbear with Sussex. I know David down in Sussex has had similar questions around being able to see what clubs are doing and get an overview at least of, are they using it effectively, and being able to report back either on a monthly or quarterly basis to the CB, so that you can see what the issues are across the CB. Obviously, there's caveats around that in terms of some clubs might use it religiously, others might not. So you have to sort of take it all the sort of reporting with a pinch of salt in terms of what you see when you do start comparing clubs against other clubs. But within the wider proactive system, we are looking at a higher level of access, what I call a Jesus level access, which is, it's called that because I'd be Jesus, what a silly thing to say. The person, the admin would be Jesus level admin, and then the disciples would be the clubs underneath that. So you might have 12, 15, 20, or Yorkshire might have 70 clubs, but having that 1 or 2 admins at a higher level to be able to see that would be really useful. In other areas that we work in, so we do a lot of work in kids camps and places like that where they've got potentially multiple projects running, National Citizen Service or a holiday activity and food program. They want to be able to separate their organisation by project, but be able to see an overall picture, which is the theory of the Jesus level access. That is going to be on the system going forwards, but it will be a case of how we manage that with the Rugby Safe team centrally, because they've always been keen to make sure that the clubs, and it is the case that the clubs own that data that is on there, but also how we can potentially get the clubs to authorise a CB in some way to be able to view a top level summary of information. Obviously, you wouldn't need, you probably wouldn't want to see every single incident, every single concussion, but being able to see an overview might be really useful. So yeah, we'll keep pulling at that strand a little bit more. As I say, the functionality will be on the system to do it. It'll just be a case of whether the powers that be want to adopt that for CBs, and also how we manage that going forwards.
And could we leave it to, if it was able to do it like that, we could leave it to individual clubs to basically click something when they download their app and distribute their licenses to the people in their club. Then they could have a button that just goes, connect to your CB dashboard. So it could be a voluntary thing if any one club had any particular objections or data-wise or whatever to that, and then we could gradually reassure those that didn't want to join if they weren't confident about it. We could do that club by club.
Yeah.
So at least they felt like they had some control about, like you say, club controller data and whether they bought into a system like that or not. And once they saw the benefit of it, I know I could probably talk to all of our clubs about the benefits of not having to do duplicate reporting both on proactive and to the CB, which they currently have to do. Take out that whole step.
The theory is very much the same around the link to Injured Players Foundation, the link to the AGPs, the link to CRISP, having it all in one space that is, really easy for clubs to use and that they're familiar with as well. You'll notice that the rugby version of Proactive doesn't say Proactive on it. It literally is, we just power it, but it's your version. So, the links are, Rachel comes to me pretty much every month saying, can we link it to this? Player match day cards and referees, and there's so many strands it could go along, but it's sort of managing that process. Obviously, CRISP is a great addition to have on there for clubs, and that will make it easier. I suspect we'll have CRISP for schools, which is slightly different on there come September. So, we're constantly adding to it and amending it. And, I think you benefited from the fact that rugby was the first major NGB to take Proactive on board, in terms of you've basically got whatever Rachel was asked for. However, the legacy is that we had to prove to the RFU as an NGB that we had the right credentials to provide this sort of service to your clubs. So that sort of case model and that trust and that sort of relationship has grown over the last 4 years, and as now clubs are starting to say, well, this really should be linked to GMS, and it would be great to have it linked into GMS, or can it do this, can it do that, because it is your system. So yeah, I'll keep pulling on that one, and we'll see how we go.
Thanks, Tom.
Luke, you've got your hand up. Is that a question? Hope not.
No, not a question, yes, but also just a point of clarification for people that don't necessarily understand the difference between the black version and the rugby version, because we do regularly have people not necessarily on the right one. So just to sort of help people grasp, the difference between the two and where they need to go to make sure they're on the right version.
Yeah.
Can you update them, as in to give them the technical?
Sorry, what was? I
just
lost the question mixed in
I'm
there.
just
Sorry.
making sure that, like, you just describe briefly the difference between the black version and the what we call the black version and the rugby version, that they are two distinct apps essentially.
Yeah. So
And I will get the
obviously
link for the right one to put in the chat.
yeah. So obviously the web version, we've got the rugby version and the black version, and that will be the same when the native app comes out. But obviously, because we will signpost all clubs to the rugby version of the app, that will be the one that you'll naturally fall onto anyway. The app will have exactly the same functionality that the web version of the rugby app has. So when it comes to reporting through the Injured Players Foundation, when it comes to having the questions slightly different and not safeguarding, that will all be replicated on the native app. So it will be exactly as you see it here, and the functionality will be the same, the links will be the same, the AGP link will be the same. So it will just be a case of making sure that people find the right one on the app stores, whether that be Google or Apple or Windows, and then make sure they grab that one with the icon on it. Hopefully, we'll do some great marketing around it, because it is a good step forwards. It makes it even more usable in terms of offline capabilities. So yeah, that will be the next big step. Any other questions for anybody at the moment? Luke, is there anything else from your end that people have come to you about? Any FAQs, any relatively recent? Because you're
A few new clubs, I think, just in terms of setting up. So obviously we've got a series of videos that we have on YouTube to help people understand that. But in the round, I think just grasping some of the things you said earlier around the usefulness of being able to put specific information about your club on there, but also just understanding, groups as age groups, as it were, and how easy it is to set those up and also differentiate people's level of access into those groups. So it just takes a little bit of thinking about whoever's setting it out. Maybe get a piece of paper and draw it out so you're happy with how you're going to define those groups and who's going in each group, so that when you go to set it up, the actual process of setting it up in the app is super easy. I think it's probably just worth having a look at it first, going away, writing down how you want the group set up by age group, probably who's going to go into those groups, and then what information you want in your medical emergency action plan. Get all that together and then come back and put it all in into the app, which is actually the easy bit. Sometimes maybe people are getting into it to set it up and then maybe not having all the information, then feel a bit like they're lost, whereas in fact if they just take a step back and visualize how they want all the people to go into it before they start setting individuals up, then it'll make those steps a lot quicker once you get to it.
yeah. More videos, and is constantly doing videos, helpful how-to videos that have been added pretty recently. We are also updating the links to the wider RFU websites that are on there, because we know that they did a full review of all of that and they've changed some of the links. So we're just waiting on the updated links, and we'll then push it through. That's a good idea, Michelle. I like that. So yeah, so there is plenty going on, and Luke and I are always here. I think Michelle will hopefully testify to the fact that we are pretty accessible as sort of admins, to help you out if you are having any difficulties. Whether that, we've had a few recently where a coach has moved from one club to another, and then basically how to move them from one club to another, because you can obviously only use an email address for one club. So there's lots of additional things, that little bits of the system that you might fall across, but might not necessarily jump out at you, that Luke's adding videos to and about all of the time. So yeah, absolutely. Cool. Luke, have you any more to add for this evening? I know that people are.
No, it's January. It's obviously a slower start to the year as we all get back into believing that summer is on its way and we're actually going to get to play some rugby, having had I don't know how many weekends cancelled. So fingers crossed the weather in the UK gets above freezing and we can get back to playing a game, which is where we want to be, and just from our point of view, helping it be safer and easier for everyone who does the amazing jobs that people on this call do to keep rugby clubs running, which is a much underrated skill and much needed in many clubs. So thanks very much. And like Dom says, we're here if you've got any questions or anyone that doesn't use the app that wants to come and chat to us, just let us know.
Yep. Great. Well, as I say, Luke has recorded the session this evening, so he will put that out across the channels. So if you need to sort of refresh yourself on a speedy quick whiz that I did at the start in terms of some of the different features and adding things in. But as we've both said, we're always here to answer questions if you're having any difficulties. We're going to do these webinars basically I think it's every month, is it, Luke, or every other month?
No, we'll certainly during the season we'll do it every month, I think.
Yeah.
Some will give you
And
a
we'll
break.
try and I mean, this one's been a little bit of a focus on nothing really, in terms of looking at a lot of different things altogether. But I know that we've got various different, like we did the concussion one, focus on a concussion tracker. We'll focus on other elements within the different webinars. So just keep an eye out for those when those emails come out, and jump on. And if you can't jump on, then obviously the recording will be done every time. So you'll have those, and we'll create a nice little bank of webinars as we go forwards.
All right, take care. We'll see you all soon.
Super. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Take care.